Good afternoon and welcome to the News Roundup for Monday, November 24, 2025. Just a couple of more days till Thanksgiving, and I'm Bill Thomas. Here's what's happening right now. President Trump taking bold action to save our nation's faltering federal health care program by considering an innovative proposal which could extend Obamacare subsidies for another couple of years. A devastating new flu strain rocking the U.S., prompting grave warnings from federal health officials, and we'll tell you more about that coming up shortly. And tensions rising dramatically throughout the entire Asian-Pacific region after China criticizes Japan's provocative move to deploy missiles on an island and near Taiwan. Also, the Trump administration makes a stunning announcement regarding our nation's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. And a musical trip to the Land of Oz is raking in a wicked amount of dough as a blockbuster Hollywood sequel becomes the smash hit of the season. All this and a bunch more coming up right now on the Big Roundup. We have a great deal to get to today, and we begin with this. The Trump administration is in the process of preparing a drastic overhaul of our country's bloated federal health care program, which could potentially spare millions of Americans from facing enormous price hikes to their upcoming Affordable Care Act premiums. And it's not sounding very affordable any longer. The White House is reportedly on the verge of releasing a daring new health policy framework, which would begin by extending government-funded Obamacare premium subsidies for another couple of years. Now, the innovative plan would also impose a number of strict new limits regarding a person's eligibility to take advantage of those subsidy extensions, and they allegedly include an income cap for receiving the credits, as well as a required monthly premium payment and no more free rides. According to healthcare experts, if the current subsidies are allowed to expire at the end of this year as planned, Americans who get their health coverage through the ACA likely to see their average payments double in 2026. Those experts also say that people who are currently shopping for policies through Obamacare and who are faced with those extraordinary prices are likely to postpone signing up for the program or else give up on getting health insurance altogether. Right now, Republicans are kind of split over how to handle the pressing issue. Some hardliners want to let the current subsidies lapse. Others would like to see them extended. And many simply want the current system to be scrapped and replaced with one that puts those subsidies directly in the hands of the people. In the meantime, the clock, it is ticking. In order to get coverage, that begins on January 1st. A person has to sign up for Obamacare by the middle of next month. Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Now, this is essentially another kick in the pants to Democrats in general and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer in particular. And they call that guy Chuckles on the count of he is a bucket of yucks. Now, Brother Schumer, his cohort House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and others recently banded together in a goofy attempt to hamstring the president's agenda and shut the government down and made the whole country suffer. Mission is accomplished. And in doing so, they put tons of people out of work, did a respectable level of damage to those receiving SNAP benefits, compromised the safety and the efficiency of our aviation system, and they forced many government employees to work without getting paid. There's more to it, but that'll do for a start. The primary reason for attempting to dismantle the federal government and make everybody suffer was due to their demands regarding ACA subsidies, which are set to expire in just about 5 weeks. Essentially, they tried to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Their scam failed. They looked like a room full of buffoons. And now that their tantrum has come to an end, it's the Trump administration to the rescue. And first off, those subsidies were not meant to last forever, but clearly the White House will jump in and possibly extend those subsidies for a couple of more years. But think on this. If the Affordable Care Act, which the Democrats keep trying to shove down our throats, was in fact affordable, then why do they want to keep adding subsidies to the program? Think about it and chime in with your thoughts or comments. We're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. And scoping out the email bag, the world-famous Davey Ross, producer Davey. And Davey, what are folks saying?
Okay, Bill, we've got Claude checking in with us today from South Philadelphia.
Claude, what's on your mind, sir?
Claude says, once again, President Trump is the guiding light our nation needs. He's brilliantly adjusting our troubled federal health care program on the fly while saving millions of Americans from despair.
Yeah, Claude, very good point. It's not affordable, and to my knowledge, you can shop around town for health coverage that's every bit as good as Obamacare and for similar prices. Big government simply should not be in the business of selling health insurance. It's never happened before, and in the future, we don't think it's going to happen for a lot longer. Moving along now to a bit of related news and turning to an alarming story which potentially affects each and every one of us. Health officials now warning that a new and potentially much more dangerous form of the common flu is currently on the brink of rapidly spreading throughout the entire U.S. and just in time for the big holidays. Experts say that right now a flu variant called H3N2 subclade K is beginning to rear its ugly head from coast to coast. They say this version is a bit of a mutation of the common flu, which your body may not be able to recognize, that current vaccines might not be effective against it, and that as a result, we could be looking at the worst flu season that we've had in years. They go on to point out that even though the symptoms which are associated with the new variant are similar to typical flu infections like fever, cough, runny nose, and all the rest, in this case, they're potentially much more severe, especially among the very old and the very young. So as a result, they're urging Americans, folks like you and I, to take a number of precautions, including washing your hands regularly, avoiding large crowds, and staying up to date on all those vaccinations. According to our pals at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, we are currently in the midst of a very bad flu season. As the middle of November, there have already been at least 650,000 illnesses caused by the flu here in the U.S., including nearly 7,500 hospitalizations and at least, at last count, 300 deaths. Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Now, when I was a kid, there were only two kinds of folks in the world, those who got the flu and those who didn't. And for the ones who got hit with the bug, life was unpleasant for several days. You finally got over it, began to eat and drink again, then life went on. And then for those who didn't get it, yeah, their days were kind of numbered, and if they dodged a bullet this year, they'd probably get hit at one point next year. You know, in those days, there were no goofy letter, number combinations to describe the flu. And the new descriptors, they sound like someone's trying to make things appear more official and maybe even life-threatening. When we got sick, we had the flu. And now if you're sick, you may have the LOM3XB9 1.4 subclade J47 virus. Yeah, it sounds serious, so I guess we all should take more of those flu shots. Now, we're not accusing anybody of anything, but it sounds to me as though someone or maybe some group is trying to frighten everyone into lining up in front of the CVS store to get jabbed with a syringe full of something which really none of us knows anything about. And right now, Davey, I'm kind of suffering from PCE. Producer Davey, you ever heard of PCE?
No, Bill. What's PCE?
Yeah, it's a scientific term which stands for pin-cushion exhaustion. I've got PCE. It's not pleasant. Now, to avoid the big bad bug, don't go anywhere without a 1-gallon jug of hand sanitizer on your person at all times. Tell us your thoughts on flu shot after flu shot with a flu shot chaser. And we're not contagious, but you can catch us at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Davey, what you got?
Okay, Bill, we've got Elmer checking in with us from Wichita, Kansas.
Hiya, Elmer. State your business.
Elmer says the CDC says to wash our hands so we don't get this newfangled flu, but what we really need to do is to wash our hands of the CDC.
Yeah, I concur entirely, and nobody wants that dreaded flu bug, but do we really need all these injections, or is washing our hands before eating enough to keep us healthy? It always kind of feels and sounds like maybe somebody is trying to force a bunch of chemicals into our body with sharp needles, and I don't like it. It doesn't feel good, and it doesn't sound good. Turning our attention now to the international scene and a breaking development concerning a rapidly growing diplomatic dispute in the Pacific Rim. The Chinese Communist regime is accusing Japan of deliberately inflaming regional tensions and provoking a military confrontation after Tokyo announcing plans to deploy a battery of defensive missiles. It's going to happen on an island located about 70 miles from Taiwan. Now, it might be just me, but China sounds spooked. A little threatened, Davey, and maybe just a little bit spooked. China claims that right now a number of right-wing forces in Japan, they're pushing the entire region toward disaster. They say Japan's move is extremely dangerous, that it should raise concerns across the entire planet, and that now more than ever the communist regime is determined to defend what they call their national territorial sovereignty. Be quiet now. For their part, Japan not wavering one iota. They say plans are already underway to deploy medium-range surface-to-air missile systems on the island, and that the move will significantly lower the odds of an armed attack against their country. Simply it's called self-preservation. We say Japan, rock on. Now, in case you're not aware, the dispute began earlier this month when Japan's newly elected prime minister said that a potential Chinese attack on nearby Taiwan could trigger a military response from Tokyo. Since then, China's communist regime has continuously stoked the flames of anger against Japan in a number of provocative ways, including a variety of travel warnings, a relentless barrage of state media-controlled commentaries, and a bunch more. Now, final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Now, in China, there's a new sheriff in town. Her name is Japan, and we're warning you got to watch your step. It's peculiar to hear China accusing Japan or anyone else of creating any kind of tension in East Asia, as China, for the most part, has a monopoly on both generating and perfecting regional tension in that corner of the planet. Xi Jinping's perpetual threats with regard to taking Taiwan have not fallen on deaf ears, and clearly all of Taiwan remains on a perpetual state of high alert. That Japan is taking a defensive position in the event of military hostilities being carried out by China is nothing more than advanced preparation. And while Japan and Taiwan are not official allies, we do think Japan will stand by their neighbor if they are in fact invaded by the communist regime. Japan, like Taiwan, is small but well fortified, and China is well advised to think long and hard before engaging their next-door neighbor. Today, China is militarily standing down, but because of Japan's actions, they've responded harshly with bans on Japanese seafood. That's more for you and I, producer Davey. Japanese movie releases as well, not much of a problem, and they're warning their citizens to avoid visiting Japan. A grand suggestion, as Japan is a free country, and like the U.S., they afford their citizens sovereignty, and they have a high level of respect for fundamental human rights. The CCP would never want to expose their citizens to anything as abhorrent as that. Things are becoming more and more complicated in East Asia. And tell us what's on your mind. Share your thoughts with us. And we're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Davey, it's all you. What you got?
Okay, Bill, we have a message here from Robin, who's writing to us from Tucson, Arizona.
Hiya, Robin. State your business. What are you thinking?
Okay, Robin says, Communist China has no intention of stopping with an invasion of Taiwan.
Yeah.
They plan to conquer every country in the Pacific, and the entire world needs to band together to stop them ASAP.
Yeah, we have banded together. And by the way, never underestimate Japan. They have a formidable military-industrial complex. And because the U.S. and Japan are formal allies, an attack on Japan would most likely pull the U.S. into the fold. Also, while Japan is not a NATO member, they do have a strong relationship with NATO and China. They got to think very carefully about any move they make on anyone in their neighborhood. And things are going to get pretty dicey. Now, some additional headlines we're also keeping a very close watch on here in the News Roundup newsroom. Important stuff. And first up, Ukrainian officials say that following a great deal of urgent work over the weekend, a great deal of progress has been made regarding much-needed amendments, all to President Trump's controversial 28-point peace plan to end Russia's war against Ukraine. Among other things, that original proposal calling for Ukraine to give up a large chunk of territory, drastically reduce their armed forces, and completely abandon their goal of becoming a member of NATO, and those new changes not yet seen by Moscow. And we say, hey, Comrade Putin, like Spike Lee said, you gotta do the right thing. And back here in the States, authorities confirming that months ahead of schedule, the Trump administration has now officially disbanded their infamous Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. And over the course of nearly a year, that agency saving our nation billions of dollars by locating and trimming a whole bunch of waste, fraud, and excess from our federal payrolls. Now, a bit of travel news regarding the upcoming holiday. The Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, they're back in business and currently preparing to deal with the busiest Thanksgiving week in 15 years. Over the next week, the TSA, the Transportation Security Administration, expecting to screen nearly 18 million air passengers, while AAA predicts that nearly 73 million more folks are going to be setting out on our nation's highways to get to their holiday festivities. And scooting along to the world of business now, taking a quick glance at a couple of stories making waves in finance, also in retail, and a bunch more. And leading off with a bit of sticker shock. Car prices here in the U.S. officially at an all-time high, with the average cost of a brand new ride rapidly approaching $50,000, and that's for the first time ever for a simple car. Moving along to a bit of better news, millions of Amazon's Prime members are about to receive automatic refunds following the company's recent $2.5 billion settlement with the Federal Trade Commission, or the FTC. That agreement concerning allegations of deceptive enrollment practices against the online retail giant. And peeking ahead to Black Friday, that's coming up. Retail experts are predicting that this year, nearly 190 million Americans are going to do a bit of holiday shopping between Thanksgiving Day and Cyber Monday. And they say the day after Thanksgiving, still the most popular time to get things done, and that the second biggest bump likely to be on the Monday after the holiday weekend. And now a quick gander at some rockin' good showbiz news, and we're going to start at the cinema, at the movies. An opening weekend of $150 million at the U.S. box office and even more around the world. Wicked for Good, truly defying gravity. The conclusion of the two-part musical adaptation of The Wizard of Oz, luring thousands of adoring fans back into movie theaters for another trip down the yellow brick road. Hey, don't be fooled by those numbers. It's a low-budget film called Wicked for Good, pulled in about $226 million globally over the weekend. But Davey and I did the math. $219 million came from concessions. Popcorn, hot dogs, Raisinets, all the gooey stuff. So in real numbers, it only made about 7 million clams. And it's not as good as Dumb and Dumber with Jim Carrey, but by all accounts, it appears to be a pretty good crowd pleaser. Speaking of Hollywood superstar George Clooney, now opening up a bit about life-altering advice he picked up a while back from screen legend Paul Newman. And Clooney says that just when he was on the verge of becoming a big star, the two actors bumped into each other on the studio lot, that Newman had no idea who this kid was, and that cool hand Luke, he ultimately urged the popular young actor to not allow his budding celebrity to turn him into a hermit. Go out, socialize, and live your life. It was a very important story about the pitfalls and the inconveniences of fame. And according to Mr. Clooney, when you go out, people recognize you, they want to visit with you and buy you drinks, get your autograph, and shake your hand. Fame and fortune, along with good looks and charm. It ain't easy. Producer Davey, is it easy for you?
Oh, it ain't easy, Bill.
Nah, it ain't easy. And while on the subject of Hollywood, screen legends, comic giant Eddie Murphy now admitting that despite all of his meteoric success, he actually made a trio of gigantic mistakes along the way. 64-year-old comedian says that looking back, the three movies he most regrets turning down over the years are Ghostbusters, Rush Hour, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Is that the one where they say, I'm not really bad, I'm just drawn that way, Davey?
Yeah, Bill, you got that one right.
From way back when. Eddie Murphy has had a world-class career. Great stand-up comic, a brilliant run on SNL, a ton of hit movies, and he's one of the best at what he does. Yeah, he turned down a few movies he shouldn't have done, but he never really struck me as an authentic Ghostbuster. It wouldn't have been a good Jackie Chan sidekick or a cartoon character either. He'll always be the best Beverly Hills cop on the force, and he'll forever be the second nuttiest professor that ever lived. And now time for us to call it a wrap on the Monday edition of the Big News Roundup. And before we go, as we do each and every day here on the program, we share with you a very notable quote, and these inspiring words come to us today from Charles Darwin, who said, "A man who dares to waste 1 hour of time has not discovered the value of life." And Darwin was a British naturalist who became world famous for his theories on evolutionary biology, and it was on this date back in 1859 when he first published his classic work on the origin of species, which explained those revolutionary theories to an entire world. And for those who don't know, Darwin also later appeared on the TV show Bewitched, and Davey, he played Samantha's husband, if I remember correctly, right?
What are you talking about, Bill? Darwin was the name of the character of Samantha's husband on Bewitched.
Yeah.
We're talking about Charles Darwin here.
Oh.
Okay, Charles Darwin, the founder of The Origin of Species.
Okay.
The founder of...
Understood.
I don't even know. Bill,
A different Darwin altogether. Honest mistake. And now it is time for us to bust on out. But before we go, don't forget the News Roundup motto. Ask not what your podcast can do for you. Simply ask what you can do for your podcast. All we ask you to do is hit that subscribe button right over there, and that way you never miss a single episode. And if it's not too much to ask, if you could please hit up a friend or two, ask them to subscribe to the channel as well. That would be a great help to us. We sure appreciate it. And now, our time, it's officially up. Have an awesome day today. Please stay safe, and let's all continue to watch out for one another. With that, Engineer Jamie, let's go ahead and dim those lights. We're going to fade to black, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow afternoon.